Loss of beauty is a catastrophe, because without that beauty, there's no call to higher being. You know, this is also why, you know, I've mentioned to people that they should clean up their rooms. That's become quite the internet meme. But I'm really serious about it, because it's really hard to do that. And it isn't just that you clean it up. You also make it beautiful. 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 It's really hard to make something beautiful. Make it beautiful. And it's really worthwhile. Make it beautiful. It's really hard to make something beautiful. Make it beautiful. And it's really worthwhile. What's really cool is if you learn to make something beautiful, even in your life beautiful, then you've established a relationship with beauty, and then you can start to expand that relationship with beauty out into the world, like into other elements of your life, and that is so worthwhile. It's just incredibly, crazily worthwhile. Make it beautiful. 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 And that's an invitation to the divine. Make it beautiful. You have to be daring to do that. Make it beautiful. And that's an invitation to the divine. Make it beautiful. You have to be daring to do that. People are terrified of it. People are terrified of color. They paint their walls beige. They're terrified of art. They buy some mass-produced thing because they don't want anybody laughing at them for their lack of taste. And they would get laughed at because they have no taste. But you have to, well, it's right, because what do you know, right? You have to develop it, and so you're going to stumble along and make mistakes to begin with, and you're going to show yourself, because if you buy, oh, I think this is pretty, and you know, somebody comes over and goes, hey, what's up with you? It's kind of hard on your self-esteem, but it's you're stumbling towards the right, you're stumbling towards the kingdom of God. That's what you're stumbling towards when you try to make an aesthetic decision. Make it beautiful. Aesthetic. 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 That's what you're stumbling towards when you try to put something in your life that's beautiful, and it's unbelievably worthwhile to do that. And you have to steer clear of the frauds and the con artists and all of that, and art is full of that, of course, because it's difficult to distinguish between the real thing and the fraud, but it's unbelievably worthwhile. Beauty is so valuable, and we're so afraid of it. It's not the only pathway to the divine. Love is one of them, I suppose. But beauty, especially for people who have an affinity for beauty, it's like music. It's one of those things that you can't argue against. You can't even understand. It just hits you. It just hits you. It's like a vision of the potential future. That if we just got our act together and beautified things, that's the place that we can inhabit, and that would ennoble us. That's why Jerusalem, the heavenly city, is paved with gemstones, with crystalline lit light. Yeah, it's the proper dwelling place for enlightened consciousness. Healing is the proper dwelling place for enlightened consciousness. We ignore it at our spiritual and economic peril. It's obvious. There's almost nothing more valuable than beauty. Sleeping Beauty goes to sleep, and the reason she goes to sleep is because she has the parents who are quite young, so they're pretty desperate to have a child, like so many people are. And they only have one child, like so many people do that. They don't want anything to happen to this child, because like, hey, it's America. She's the princess. They're not letting anything around her. So they have a big christening party. They invite everybody, but they don't invite Maleficent. Maleficent is the terrible mother. She's nature. She's like the thing that goes bump in the night. She's the devil herself, so to speak. She's everything that you don't want your child to encounter. So the king and queen say, well, we just want to invite her to the christening. It's like, good luck with that. That's an Oedipal story. The Oedipal author is the mother who devours her child by overprotecting him or her, so that instead of being strengthened by an encounter with the terrible world, they're weakened by too much protection. And then when they're let out into the world, they cannot live. And that's the story of Sleeping Beauty. And they apologize to Maleficent. And she first shows up and say, well, they have a bunch of half-witted excuses why they don't invite her. They forgot. It's like, I don't think so. You don't forget something like that. And she kind of makes that point. It's like the whole horror of life. You don't forget about that when you have a child, that's for sure. You might wish that you could say, okay, but you do not forget about it. The question is, do you invite it to the party? And the answer is, it bloody well depends how unconscious you want your child to be. And if you want your child to be unconscious, well, then you have the added advantage. Maybe they won't leave home, and so you can take advantage of them for the rest of your sad life instead of going off to find something to do for yourself. Or you can take revenge on them if they do have an impetus towards courage that you sacrificed yourself 30 years ago and want to stamp out as soon as you see it develop in your child. That's another thing that would be quite pleasant. Quite pleasant. Quite pleasant. That's another thing that would be quite pleasant. Quite pleasant. Quite pleasant. So that's what happens in Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, well, none of this is pleasant. Nothing that happens in that story is pleasant. So Sleeping Beauty, she's naive as hell. They put her out in the forest and have her raised by goody two-shoes fairies. And then the first idiot prince that wanders by, she falls in love with so badly that she has post-traumatic stress disorder and he rides off on his horse. That's what happens. And she goes into the castle and she's all freaked out because she met the love of her life for like 5 minutes. That's when the spinning wheel, that's the wheel of fate, pops up and she pricks her finger. Try to get rid of all the spinning wheels. They try to get rid of all the wheels of fate that are pointed in, but she finds it, pricks a finger, and falls down unconscious. Well, she wants to be unconscious. No bloody wonder. She was protected her whole life. She's so damn naive that her first love affair just about kills her. She wants to go to sleep and never wake up. Never wake up. Never wake up. She wants to go to sleep and never wake up. And so that's exactly what happens. And then she has to wait for the prince to come and rescue her. Well, you think, how sexist can you get? That's a boneheaded way of looking at the story, because the prince isn't just a man who's coming to rescue the woman. The prince also represents a woman's own consciousness. Without that forward-going, courageous consciousness, the woman herself would drift into unconsciousness and terror. All she can do is lay there and sleep, like sleep with the naive and damned. She has to wake herself up, bring her own consciousness, her own masculine consciousness into the forefront so that she can survive in the world. That's partly what's implicit in this idea, is that unless the woman is taken out of man, so to speak, then she isn't a human being, she's just a creature, and that's partly what's embedded in this story. So you don't want to read it as a patriarchal. You don't want to read anything.
People are very creative, but they can't think critically. But I can think critically. So this is a creative, theoretical enterprise conjoined with the capacity to tell the difference between bad ideas and good ideas. And hopefully, what I'm going to talk to you about are the greatest ideas that humanity has ever produced. There are also ideas that we don't understand well, and whose highest level of formal development we risk forgetting because we're criticizing things that we invented as a species, but that we cannot understand rationally. We're predisposed to believe that ideas that we can't understand rationally have to be wrong. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes we're just not smart enough to understand it. So,
what can you do to improve yourself? Well, the first question is, why should you even bother improving yourself? And I think the answer to that is something like, so you don't suffer any more stupidly than you have to. And maybe so others don't have to, we don't have to. It's something like that. You know, like there's a real injunction at the bottom of it. It's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's that if you don't organize yourself properly, you'll pay for it, and in a big way, and so will the people around you. And you can say, well, I don't care about that, but that's actually not true. You actually do care about that, because if you're in pain, you will care about it. And so you do care about it, even if it's just that negative way, you know. It's very rare that you can find someone who's in excruciating pain who would ever say, well, it would be no better if I was out of this. Pain is one of those things that brings the idea that it would be better if it didn't exist along with it. It's keeping your act together? And the answer to that is something like, look around for something that bothers you and see if you can fix it. Fix it. Fix it. And see if you can fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. And see if you can fix it. So now you think, well, you can do this in a room. It's quite fun. Maybe in your bedroom, you can sit there and just sort of meditate on it. If I wanted to spend 10 minutes making this room better, what would I have to do? But you have to ask yourself that, right? It's not a command, it's like a genuine question. And things will pop out in the room. There's a stack of papers over there that's kind of bugging you. And things will pop out in the room. You know that maybe a little order there would be a good thing. And things will pop out in the room. There's some rubbish behind your computer monitor. And things will pop out in the room. The room would be slightly better if it was a little less dusty and the cables weren't all tangled up the same way. And if you allow yourself to just consider the expanse in which you exist at that moment, there'll be all sorts of things that will pop out in it that you can just fix. And, you know, I might say, well, if you were to come to see me for psychotherapy, the easiest thing for us to do first would just be maybe organize your room. You think, well, is that psychotherapy? And the answer is, well, it depends on how you conceive the limits of your being. And I would say, start where you can start. You know, if something announces itself to you, which is a strange way of thinking about it, as in need of repair, that you could repair, then, hey, fix it. If you fix 100 things like that, your life would be a lot different. Fix it. You know, I often tell people too, fix the things you repeat every day. Fix it. Because people tend to think of those as trivial. Fix it. Those probably constitute 50% of your life. And people think, well, they're mundane, I don't need to pay attention to them. It's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The things you do every day, those are the most important things you do. Hands down. So, 100 adjustments to your broader domain of being, and there's a lot less rubbish around and a lot fewer traps for you to step into. Traps for you to step into. Traps for you to step into.
Traps for you to step into.
Once you've got your mind and your emotions together, and once you're acting that out, then you can extend what you're willing to consider yourself and start fixing up the things that are a part of your broader extent. Now, just because things announce themselves as in need of repair doesn't mean that it's you right then and there that should repair them. You have to have some humility. You don't walk up to a helicopter that isn't working and just start tinkering away with it. You have to stay within your domain of competence. I like the idea of the room because you can do that at the drop of a hat. Go back to where you live and sit down and think, okay, I'm going to make this place better for half an hour. What should I do? You have to ask, and things will just pop up like mad. And it's partly because your mind is a very strange thing. As soon as you give it an aim, a genuine aim, it'll reconfigure the world in keeping with that aim. Be careful what you aim at. What you aim at determines the way the world manifests itself to you. And so if the world is manifesting itself in a very negative way, one thing to ask is, are you aiming at the right thing? You know, I'm not trying to reduce everybody's problems to an improper aim. People get cut off at the knees for all sorts of reasons. There's a random element to being, that's for sure. And things do happen to people, but it's still a great thing to ask. Careful what you aim at. Be careful what you aim at. You aim at. Be careful what you aim at. You aim at. Be careful what you aim at. You aim at.
When I started working on this problem, or I guess when it started working on me, it was probably really in the mid-80s. I found myself suffering from two things. One was a very lengthy sequence of nightmares about nuclear destruction. They're very affect dreams. And associated with that was a sense of amazement that a dream that was that awful could reflect a reality that could be that awful. And the additional amazement at the fact that despite the production of tens of thousands of weapons of unimaginable destruction, that people could go about their day-to-day lives without acting as if anything fundamental whatsoever changed. Now, I've never really been able to figure out why that disturbed me so much when it seemed to not disturb most of the people I knew. It doesn't really matter. I probably spent my whole life trying to understand what evil it was, and more importantly, what might be done about it. Before you dare to talk about something like evil, you should do some thinking about what it is that you're talking about. And I don't think you can talk about it at all until you distinguish it from tragedy. The nature of the human being is such that it consists of the confrontation of the bounded finite with the unbounded infinite. Now, those are the bare facts of the matter. The bounded finite with the unbounded infinite. The world of experience as it presents itself to us is literally and not metaphorically complex beyond our capacity to understand. And that means people deal in a real sense on an ongoing basis with the infinite. That fact is the reason why religious experience is essentially endemic to mankind. It's a human universal, and it's not because people believe. Human existence consists of a confrontation between the finite and the infinite, the finite and the infinite, the finite and the infinite. And religious systems really take that into account. Now, our affinity in the face of the infinite has some inevitable consequences. Those consequences are essentially the existential conditions of life. The finite is always overwhelmed by the infinite. It has to be, because it can't encapsulate it. And so what that means is that suffering is central to the nature of human existence. Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die. And every single person who's alive is going to deal with serious physical illness and mental distress. And so the fact of our finitude is central to the nature of our being, and we're forced to deal with it on an ongoing basis. If you could do absolutely anything you wanted at any point, and be anywhere you wanted, be anything you wanted, and if there was nothing that was out of your reach, there would be nothing to do. There's no story. There's no being. There's something about being that is a story, and without limitation, there's no story. Humans are vulnerable, and that's tragic. But if tragedy is the price that we pay for existence, then so be it. And so tragedy itself can't be regarded as evil. It's a condition of existence. So earthquakes are evil. Cancer is evil. Mental illness is evil. Predators are evil. So earthquakes are evil. Cancer is evil. Earthquakes are evil. Cancer is evil. Mental illness is evil. Predators are evil. They just are part of the way things are. But there are certain categories of human action that are definitely outside the parameters of mere tragedy, and those are the things we really have to get handle on. Evil for me is differentiated from tragedy by its lack of necessity and voluntarism. Evil is more pernicious than that which is generated by social equality. I think it's actually a form of demonically warped aesthetic. Demonically warped aesthetic. Aesthetic. Demonically warped aesthetic. Demonically warped aesthetic. The model on the gates of Auschwitz make you free. That's an aesthetic of evil, to make a joke, terrible, terrible, ironic joke. It's instructive to meditate on what sort of imagination would have the arrogance to tell such a terrible joke.
Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Wherefore, if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? Therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? Those are famous lines. That's sort of Christ the hippie, right? It's like, hey, let it all hang out. That's a little phrase. Do your thing, and everything will come to you.
Let it all hang out. That's an old phrase. Do your thing, and everything will come.
But that's serious not the proper interpretation, because there's a kicker with this, and the kicker is this. For your heavenly Father knows that you have need of all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's a lot different than the hippie thing. That's a lot different than the hippie thing, right? That's a lot different than the hippie thing. That's a lot different than the hippie thing, right? There's a very, very, very interesting idea. It's certainly one of the most profound ideas that I've ever encountered. If you configure your life so that what you are genuinely doing is aiming at the highest possible good, then things that you need to survive, thrive on a day-to-day basis will deliver themselves to you. If you dare to do the most difficult thing that you can conceptualize, your life will work out better than it will if you do anything else. Whether or not that's true unless you do it. You have to be all in this game. It's like what happens at the beginning of the story of Pinocchio with Geppetto. Wishes on a star. See what Geppetto does is ally himself with the metaphorical manifestation of the highest good he can conceptualize. At the star. For him, the star is the possibility that he can take his creation, a couple of strings are being pulled by unseen forces, and have it transformed into something that's autonomous and real. Well, that's a hell of an ambition. We're wise enough to put that in the children's movie, but too foolish to understand what it means. It's such an interesting juxtaposition that we can both know that and not know it at the same time. Go to the movie, watch it, it makes sense. But that doesn't mean you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. They exist at different levels, and all the levels will communicate with one another. But the movie is a hypothesis, and the hypothesis is there's no better pathway to self-realization and the ennoblement of being than to posit the highest good that you can conceive of to make yourself. This is definitely what I'm asking you. Do you really have anything better to do? And if you don't, then why would you do anything else?
Therefore take no thought for tomorrow. Take thought for sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof.
Spend a long time trying to figure out what that meant too, because it's another one of those lines that can easily be read as pro-grasshopper and anti-ant. The old fable of the grasshopper and the ant. Maybe not. I'm not going to tell you that. The ant works and the grasshopper fails. The ant has a pretty good time in the winter and the grasshopper dies. This is like a pro-grasshopper line, but it's not. It says something else. It says that if you orient yourself properly and then pay attention to what you do every day, that works. That works. That works. I actually think that that's an important thing. What we have come to understand about human perception is what happens is The world shifts itself around your aim. You're a creature that has an aim. You have to have an aim in order to do something. You're an aiming creature. You look at a point and you move towards it. It's built right into it. And so you have an aim. Well, let's say your aim is the highest possible aim. Well, then, so that sets up the world around you. It organizes all of your perceptions. It organizes what you see and you don't see. It organizes your emotions and your motivations. So you organize yourself around that aim. And then what happens is the day manifests itself as a set of challenges and problems. And if you solve them properly, then you stay on the pathway towards that aim. And you can concentrate on the day. So that way you get to have your cake and eat it too. Because you can point into the distance, the far distance. And you can live in the day. Live in the day. Live in the day. And you can live in the day. That makes every moment of the day supercharged with meaning. Because everything that you're doing every day is related to the highest possible aim that you can conceptualize. Well, that's the very definition of the meaning that would sustain you in your life. Well, and then the issue is back to Noah. Well, all hell's about to break loose and chaos is coming. It's like, when that's happening in your life, you might want to be doing something that you regard as truly worthwhile. Because that's what will keep you afloat when everything is flooded. And you don't want to wait until flood comes to start doing that. Because if your ark's half full and you don't know how to captain it, the probability is very high that you'll drown. I'm quite enamored of lobsters, as some of you might know. Because I found out, this just blew me away when I found out just exactly how much continuity there was in the neurochemistry of human beings and the neurochemistry of animals. It's absolutely staggering. It's the sort of thing that makes the fact of evolution something like self-evident. Random mutation and natural selection is the only way you can solve the problem of how to deal with an environment that's complex beyond your ability to comprehend. I think what you do is you generate endless variants because God knows what the hell's going to happen next. Almost all of them die because they're failures, and a couple crop up, and the environment keeps moving around like a giant snake. You never know what it's going to do next. And so the best you can do is say, well, here's 30 things that might work. 28 of them are going to perish. Anyways, back. So these creatures engage in dominance disputes. So it really is the toughest lobster that wins. What's so cool about the lobster is that when a lobster wins, he flexes, gets bigger, so he looks bigger because he's a winner. It's like he's advertising that. The neurochemical system that makes him flex is serotonergic. And you think, is that? Tell you what it means. It's the same chemical that's affected by antidepressants in human beings. And so, like, if you're depressed, you're feeding lobster. You're like this. I'm small. Things are dangerous. I don't want to fight. You give someone an antidepressant, they stretch, and then they're ready to take on the world again. Well, if you give lobsters who just got defeated in a fight serotonin, then they stretch out and they'll fight again. And that's, if we separate from those creatures on the evolutionary timescale, somewhere between 350 and 600 million years ago, and the damn neurochemistry is the same. And so that's another indication of just how important hierarchies of authority are. Okay, so here's the problem. There's a big problem here. The problem is, it's true. God only knows why. Maybe you're too short, or you're not as beautiful as you could be, or if your grandparent was a serf, likely, because almost everybody's great-grandparent was. And you're not as smart as you could be, and you have a sick relative, and you have your own physical problem. Frankly, you're a mess. And you're oppressed in every possible way, including your ancestry and your biology. And the entire sum of human history has conspired to produce victimized you with all your individual pathological problems. It's like, yes, true. Okay, But the problem is that it is true. And so if you take the oppressed, you have to fractionate them and fractionate them. It's like, you're a woman. Yeah, okay, well, I'm a black woman. Well, I'm a black woman who has 2 children. Well, I'm a black woman who has 2 children, and one of them isn't very healthy. And then, well, I'm a Hispanic woman, and I have a genius son who doesn't have the money so that he can't go to university. And, you know, I had a hell of a time getting across the border. It was really hard on me to get my citizenship. My husband is an alcoholic brute. It's like, well, yeah, that sucks too. And so, let's fix all your oppression. Let's fix all your oppression. Let's fix all your oppressions. And we'll take every single thing into account, then we'll fix yours too. We'll take every single thing into account. It's like, no, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. Because you can't. You can't. It is technically impossible. First of all, you can't even list all the ways that you're oppressed. Second, how are you going to weight them? Third, who's going to decide? That's the bloody thing. Who's going to decide? Who's going to decide? That's the thing. Well, what's the answer in the West? It's like, in free markets, oh yeah, Christ will never be able to solve this problem. No one can solve it. What are we going to do about that? We're going to outsource it to the marketplace. You're going to take your sorry, pathetic being, and you're going to try to offer me something that maybe I want. And I'm going to take my sorry, pathetic being, and I'm going to say, well, all things considered, as well as I can understand it, maybe I could give you this much money, which is actually a promise, for that thing. And you packed all of your damn oppression into the price. And I packed all my oppression into the willingness to pay it. And that solution sucks. It's a bad solution. Compared to every other solution, man. It's why 10% of us have freedom. And so there's a tremendous illogic at the bottom of this. It's like, you have to fractionate the oppressed all the way down to the level of the individual. Oh, that's what the West figured out. You know, there's a couple of figures who have the mythological roots of our culture. You know, people get upset with me because I bring in religious themes, but I understand some things about mythology and religion. It's not an accident that the axiomatic Western individual is someone who was unfairly nailed to a cross and tortured. It's like, yes! Right! Exactly! So what do you do about that? Well, I thought about that for a long time too. It's like, well, you don't get together the damn law. Because all that does is allow you to be as horrible as you can possibly imagine and suffer with none of the consequences. That's a bad idea. So how about we don't do that? Well, there's a deep idea in the West too. It's like, pick up your damn suffering. Bear it. Try to be a good person so you don't make it worse. Well, that's the truth. I read all about the terrible things that people have done to each other. Just can't even imagine it. It's so awful. So you don't want to be someone like that. Now, do you have a reason to be? Yes. You have a lot of reasons. God, there's reason to be resentful about your existence. Everyone you know is going to die. You too. And there's going to be a fair bit of pain along the way, and lots of it's going to be unfair. It's like, yeah. No wonder you're resentful. It's like, act it out and see what happens. You make everything you're complaining about infinitely worse. This idea that hell is a bottomless pit. And that's because no matter how bad it is, some stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse. So you think, well, what do you do about that? Well, you accept it. That's what life is like. It's suffering. That's what the religious people have always said. Life is suffering. Yes. Well, who wants to admit that?
What do you do in the face of that suffering? Try to reduce it. Start with yourself. What good are you? Get yourself together for Christ's sake so that when your father dies, you're not whining away in the corner and you can help plan the funeral. And you can stand up solidly so that people can rely on you. That's better. Don't be a damn victim. Of course you're a victim. Jesus. Obviously. Put yourself together. You know how to do that. You know what's wrong with you, if you'll admit it. You know there's a few things you could, like, polish up a little bit, that you might even be able to manage in your insufficient present condition. And so you might shine yourself up a little bit, and then your eyes will be a little more open, then you can shine yourself up a little bit more, and then maybe you could bring your family together instead of having to be the hateful, spiteful, neurotic, infighting batch that you're, like, doomed to spend Christmas with. So then you fix yourself up a little bit, kind of humbly, because, you know, God, you're a fixer-upper if there ever was one. And then you got to figure out, well, can you figure out how to make peace with your idiot brother? And probably not, because he's just as dumb as you, so how the hell are you going to manage that? And so then maybe you get somewhere that way, your family's sort of functioning, and you find out, well, that kind of relieved a little bit of suffering, although it reduced the opportunities for spiteful revenge, and that's kind of a pain in the neck. And so then you get your family together a little bit, and you're a little clued in then, at least a bit, because you've done something difficult that's actually difficult. You're a little wiser, so then maybe you can put a tentative finger out beyond the family and try to change some little thing without wrecking it. Our society is complex, and we teach our students that they can just fix it. It's like, go fix the military helicopter and see how far you get with that. You're like a chimp in a wrench. Whack! Oh, look! It's better! It's like, no! It's not better. Things are complicated, and to fix things is really hard. And you have to be like a golden tool to fix things, and you're not. And that's the other message of the West. How do you overcome the suffering of life? Be a better person. That's how you do it. Well, that's hard. It takes responsibility. And I think, you know, you said to someone, you want to have a meaningful life? Everything you do matters. That's the definition of meaningful life. But everything you do matters. You're going to have to carry that with you. Or do you want to just forget about the whole meaning thing? Then you don't have any responsibility, because who the hell cares? You can wander through life doing whatever you want, gratifying impulsive desires, for how useful that's going to be. And you're stuck in meaninglessness, but you don't have any responsibility. Which one do you want? Well, ask yourself, which one are you pursuing? And you'll find very rapidly that it isn't the majority of your soul that's pursuing the whole meaning thing, because, well, look what you have to do that. You have to take on the fact that life is suffering. You have to put yourself together in the face of that. Well, that's hard. Christ, it's amazing people can even do it. I'm stunned every day when I go outside, and it isn't a riot with everything burning. I knew this guy. He'd been in a motorcycle accident, and it really ruined him. And he was like a linesman, you know, working on the power. And he was working with someone who had Parkinson's disease, and they had complementary inadequacies. And so two of them could do the job of one person. And so they're out there fixing power lines in the freezing cold, despite the fact that one was 3/4 wrecked with a motorcycle accident, and the other one had Parkinson's. That's how our civilization works. It's like there's all these ruined people out there. They've got problems like you can't believe. Off they go to work and do things they don't even like. And look, the lights are on. My God, it's unbelievable. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And we're so ungrateful. They're so ungrateful. You know, they don't know that they're surrounded by just a bloody miracle. It's a miracle that all this stuff works. That all you crazy chimpanzees that don't know each other can sit in the same room for 2 hours sweltering away without tearing each other apart, because that's what chimps do. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. So, anyways, so what happened? Well, I made some videos and I got to the bottom of some things, at least as far as I can tell, so I told you what the bottom is, and then I got this idea about what you might do about it, which isn't my idea. It's not my idea. It's an old idea. It's far older than Christianity. It's old. It's the oldest story of mankind. Get yourself together. Transcend your suffering. See if you can be some kind of hero. Get yourself together. Transcend your suffering. See if you can be some kind of hero. Make the suffering in the world less. Well, that's the way forward, as far as I can tell, if there is any way forward. And that's what it looks like to me. So, that's it.
Akira. Akira.
He's got clout.
Hello, everyone. Apologies for the delay. I hope this is all working. Hopefully I'm up to this. I'm learning how to manage this, I think. I'm not really interested, I suppose, in slowing down, although it has been a bit much in the last year and a half. I do better in some ways when I'm working flat out. So, yeah, I thought about some, but I've decided against it. There are times in your life where it's not time to slow down, it's time to become more efficient. That's the thing, you can become so efficient. You end up doing things in 5 minutes that would otherwise take you a week. As you take on more responsibilities and you determine that you're going to become more efficient, the responsibility pushes the efficiency. What do they say too? There's time enough to sleep when you're in the grave.
Analysis of the purpose of memory. People think that the purpose of memory is to remember the past. And that's not the purpose of memory. The purpose of memory is to extract out from the past lessons to structure the future. Lessons to structure the future. So you're done with a memory when you've extracted out the information that you can use to guide yourself properly in the future. Done with a memory when you've extracted out the information that you can use to guide yourself properly in the future. Done with a memory when you've extracted out the information that you can use to guide yourself properly in the future. Done with a memory when you've extracted out the information that you can use to guide yourself properly in the future. So if you have a traumatic memory, for example, it's
really obsessing you, if you analyze that memory to the point where you figured out how you put yourself at risk and you can determine how you might avoid that in the future, then the emotion associated with that goes away. Memory has a very pragmatic function, and cultural memory is the same thing. We need to extract out stories from our past that structure our future. And we need that because, well, first of all, if you don't have a purpose, it isn't that your life becomes neutral in a meaningless sense. It's that your life becomes characterized by unbearable suffering. Because the baseline condition of life is something like unbearable suffering. Is something like unbearable suffering. And what you have to set against that is a noble and worthwhile purpose. A noble and worthwhile purpose. Hopefully, your determination of that purpose is buttressed to some degree by the wisdom of the past, because you can't conjure something like that up on your own. And if you provide people with nobility of purpose, then they can tolerate the suffering of existence without becoming entirely corrupted by it. And cultures that don't do that, it isn't even so much that they die, it's that cultures that don't do that are dead. They're done. They don't have a story anymore. They don't have a call to adventure. And then, well, then everyone suffers stupidly as a consequence. It's a very bad thing. Bring the story forward and propagate it and make it the most noble possible story. And then you motivate people to transcend themselves, which they need to do. People think of freedom as the ability to implement your whim. And freedom opens up that as a possibility. But sustainable freedom, that isn't what it's about at all. It's primarily about responsibility. It's about determining which load you're going to pick up and carry. That's the proper definition of appropriate freedom. It's not dim gratification of instantaneous impulse. It's self-evident that that doesn't work. 2-year-olds do that. And that's why they can't live in the world. They can't organize themselves across time. They can't sacrifice the moment for the future. And the more sophisticated you get, I suppose, in some sense, the more you're able to do that. And then your freedom becomes the freedom to choose the proper responsibility. That's also not something that we've been good at communicating to young people. If we talk to them about responsibility, we generally do it in a finger-wagging sort of way. It's like, well, you're breaking the rules, you're a bad person. And well, that may be true. The proper message for young people is to say, well, no, you don't understand. You want to take on responsibility. You want to take on the heaviest load that you can conceive of, that you might be able to move, because it gives your life nobility and purpose. And that offsets the tragedy, offsets the tragedy, offsets the tragedy, offsets the tragedy. And not only psychologically, because you have a purpose and something to wake up for, to face the difficulties of the day, but also because if you face the difficulties of the day properly, you actually ameliorate suffering, not only in the psychological sense, but because you make the world at least a less terrible place. And that's something. And that's something. Right? To move things away from hell is something. To move things away from the worst they can be is, well, that's a noble goal in and of itself. There's a lot of really good things going on in the world. We have poverty, absolute poverty, between the year 2000 and 2012. Hundreds of thousands of people are being connected to the power grid every day. Fresh water is available not to fewer and fewer people, but to more and more people. That's happening extremely rapidly. Starvation in India and China is a thing completely of the past. You never hear about that. And that's pretty much the case for the rest of the world, except now and then for political reasons. You know, everybody's got a cell phone, and anybody who doesn't is going to have one in the next 10 years. And that puts in people's hands a degree of communication and access that would have been absolutely incomprehensible even 15 years ago. All these good things are happening. And just concentrating on this polarization process that seems to have gripped us in the West seems counterproductive given all those good things that are going on in the background. Now, that doesn't make what's going on in the West trivial, but it does set it inside a much more positive context, so that's something to keep in mind.
Freedom of speech. The right to freedom of speech is central because it's the right by which you defend all the other rights. Well, that's why the idea of logos in the West is the most sacred concept. Christ, think about this psychologically, Christ is the ideal of perfection. This is independent of any religious discussion or any historical accuracy. It doesn't matter. What Christ represents is the perfect individual. Whatever that is. Now, you discuss endlessly what that is, but one of the things the West has settled on is that the perfect individual utters the truthful speech that makes potential into habitable order. Does that through truth. That's embedded in the first few sentences of Genesis, for example. God brings the world into being. And the idea that that truthful speech that brings the world into being from formless potential also characterizes each person. That's our fabrication in the image of God. That's the idea of the West. It's an unbelievably remarkable idea that perfection, individual perfection, is to be found in the relationship with spoken truth. God, that's the great idea. Well, it's out of that arises the observation that there's nothing more central to the hierarchy of rights and obligations as well, let's say, than freedom of speech. Yes, it's absolutely central. That's why Christ is the Word made flesh. The idea is that the perfect individual is the person who speaks truth, but also acts out the truth of those words. It's a proposition whose merit is virtually self-evident when you understand it in that manner. So yeah, to see assaults on freedom of speech, especially compelled speech, well, that's where I drew the line in my life. It's like, that is the West. It's logocentric. If you want to take the West down, you remove the idea of the divine word from the substructure of the society. So you have to do that. It's like, and this is the level at which this war is being fought. It's fundamentally a theological war.
Question?
I married young and have had only one sexual partner. Now I desire variety, but value my marriage and will not cheat. Any insight on overcoming this conflict? As a matter of fact, yes, I would say get the variety with your partner. You know, there's lots of games you can play to spice up your sexual life. Buy some lingerie, like buy 100 pieces. You know, buy whatever you need that you might want to experiment with. You have to introduce that spirit of pretend play that you had when you were a little kid into your sexual life, and then you have many partners in the same person. Put some thought into it. Sex is a domain in which expertise can be developed just like any other domain. Some of that's play and fantasy play, some of it's sexual technique. And I guess then the other thing I would say is take stock of each other and see if there are things that you could do in your life that would make you more attractive to one another. You know, those are hard questions because no one wants to say, well, you know, I'd be more attracted to my wife sexually if she just acted X way, and the same with regards to a wife's contemplation of her husband, but those are the real questions, man. If your partner isn't acting in a manner that is sexually attractive, then either there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with them. Those harsh judgments that your sexual attraction makes are also very useful ways of orienting yourself towards proper behavior in the world. Admit to the variety that you want and see to what degree you can fulfill that within the confines of the marriage. It's also part of coming into contact with the shadow, I would say, if you want to look at it from a Jungian perspective. You might have all sorts of sexual desires that part of you feels should remain taboo. And maybe they should. I'm not suggesting absolute sexually libertine behavior. Maybe they should. I know sexuality has to be regulated very carefully. You might be able to push yourself with some time and effort and contemplation and some admission of fantasy and all of that into domains of sexual satisfaction that you haven't achieved before. I try to do this in my therapeutic practice. I try to do this all the time.
I want the best for what wants the best in you. It's like that part, I'm that part's friend. It's like I don't have unconditional positive regard. I am not on the side of you that's aiming at your defeat. I'm not at all on that side. I'm on the side of you that's struggling towards the light, right? And I'm on the side of that part of me. At least I'm trying to be on the side of that. And that's the definition of love. And that's the definition of love, I believe. Because what it means is, but I said it. I truly want the best for what wants the best in you. Yeah. And people love that. They love that, man. I'm trying to figure out what's the best for us. Really, the best. Not the best for me, although that's part of it. Because here I am, you know, and I'm in the game too. I'm so greedy, let's say. I don't just want the best for me. That's not enough for me. I'm too greedy for that. Maybe I'm too selfish for that. I want the best for me in a way that's the best for everyone else too. Because that's even better. That's another interesting thing about being bounded by death. You have nothing to lose. You might as well aim for the highest goal, because what have you got to lose that you aren't already going to lose? Nothing. Nothing. And you have everything, hypothetically, to gain. If you want to go to university and become a physician, there's a lot of sacrifice of impulsive gratification that goes along with that. But if you become a physician, then it's a noble enterprise, people support you socially, and all of the needs that you need to have fulfilled will also be fulfilled by that enterprise. Well, that's a way better model. Well, that's a way better model. It's strange that the maximum freedom comes with the adoption of a discipline and then also the adoption of responsibility. That frees you up and everyone else around you in the long run. And if you explain that to people, especially in this day and age when they've been fed a never-ending diet of idiot rights and freedoms, they're immediately on board with it because they know that most of the meaning that people experience in their life is a consequence of adopting responsibility. Adopting responsibility. So they're starving for that.
starving for that. They're starving for that. The idea to be articulated.
It's as if something like the following happened as humanity developed. First were the endless tens or hundreds of thousands of years prior to the emergence of written history and drama. During this time, the twin practices of delay and exchange begin to emerge slowly and painfully. Then they become represented in metaphorical abstraction as rituals and tales of sacrifice, told in a manner such as this. It's as if there's a powerful figure in the sky who sees all and is judging you. Giving up something you value seems to make him happy, and you